Thanks for having me. Just first and foremost, I want to say it is an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to serve as First Lady. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about how I approach this job with a lot of humility. I understand and realized very quickly when the good Lord puts you in a position to be able to make a difference, what do you do with it? And it's been just very humbling. But when he was first elected in 2018 and then you get into 2019, I had a choice at that point in time, right? People were saying, what are you going to do? Like, what's your one initiative? Are you just going to read to children, which is great. Like, I do that. I read to my kids every night. I go around schools. I do that. But what are you ultimately going to do? And I said, you know what? I don't know. And I want to take this opportunity to go and learn. And so I had the chance to get in front of a lot of groups across the state and people who particularly were in the child welfare sphere, in mental health and in the welfare sphere. And, I wanted to learn more because you don't want to go into anything with, a false assumption of how you think something operates, right? So I wanted to get out there and I wanted to learn. Because I thought, again, as First Lady, what do you do with that opportunity? I don't want to be a potted plant in the side of the room and watch the world go by and take the path of least resistance. Is that what the good Lord wants you to do? Or do you want to get out there and educate yourself? And do you want to learn? And do you want to make a difference? And I went around and I learned from a lot of the key stakeholders. And it was fueled, let me tell you this, it was fueled by the fact that I hate to see people suffer. There are people in our society and in our state who are suffering. And if there is something that we can do to ease their suffering, then we have an obligation to stand up and fight for them. And so, therefore, I felt very compelled. But the question is, okay, what do you do? Because I don't believe that government's the solution to anything, right? But government is uniquely positioned, as the governor said. Since the late 1960s, you had the Great Society. You had Johnson came in after the Kennedy assassination. He won in a landslide, and he said, I'm going to take on the war on poverty, and I'm going to reduce and eliminate poverty. And listen, if I could snap my fingers, or the governor could snap his fingers in 2 seconds and get rid of poverty, of course we would do it. But what happened as a result of that? Government grew. Trillions of dollars were spent. And were the people who were suffering ultimately getting the help that they needed and deserved? I would say overwhelmingly no. But what happened is, after that, a lot of very vulnerable people and people who were looking to help were directed to government, right? They got away from the churches. They got away from the communities. They got away from the people who were on the ground, who had the God-given mission to be able to help those people. But there became a disconnect. So we thought, and I thought, after traveling the state, right, and learning from all of the experts on the ground and learning to the stakeholders, what can we do uniquely positioned as government when people who are suffering and are in need of help, that single mom, who I sympathize with very much, because I have 3 kids and I know how hard it is. Imagine how hard it is for her. Imagine how difficult it is for her to figure out how she's going to put food on the table, how she's going to have her kids home for dinner, homework, keep down a job, keep the lights on, to do everything that she needs to do. Who's fighting for her? I said, we will. And here's why. Because when you're coming into government, we have an obligation to be able to connect them with resources exterior of government. What do I mean? So when I was meeting with people on the ground, I saw one thing very clear. There's so much good being done in the communities, but it's all siloed, right? So you have the nonprofits, you have the faith-based communities, you have the private sector, you have the state government, you have the local government. They're doing good things, right? But they're not communicating, and they're not communicating, and they're not collaborating on behalf of that single mom. So we said, okay, without growing government, right? Because the closest thing to what is eternal life is a government program, right? Is that Reagan? So it's not to grow government, but what we can do is we can transition people who are processing government assistance, right? So TANF and SNAP and those sort of benefits. Why don't we transition them over to be a part of the solution? Why don't we empower them now when that single mom is calling in to be able to say, okay, how can we help you? What do you need? Instead of, here's your check, I hope it goes well, we'll see you in 6 months, and whatever. No. We said, and actually talking with a lot of these navigators, they feel empowered for the first time in their lives, like they can make a difference, right? So now you have this single mom, you have this navigator who used to just process payments as a part of the solution. She says, what can you do? Or how do you need help? Just, well, I'm having a hard time keeping the lights on. I'm having a hard time putting food on the table. I don't know what kind of job I can get. I don't have a high school diploma. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Well, that navigator becomes a mentor for that mom. And she says, we've got you. We're going to help you. We're going to start here. And when you start here to meet needs, what does that mean? It doesn't mean government. Of course, if they're entitled to benefits, you do that. I mean, there should be a safety net to be able to support people. I think the taxpayers would be in support of that. Not in perpetuity, but right, okay, let's help. Now let's look exterior of government. Let's look to the nonprofits. Let's get a Rolodex together. It's so funny, I say Rolodex, and the kids are like, what's a Rolodex? And I'm just like, okay, Siri. You're asking Siri, right? Or I guess we're getting to the point where it's like Grok or whatever. Grok, you go to Grok. Ask Grok. What are the resources available within the community? So now they're looking through the Rolodex or whatever, and they're finding, you know, there's all these great things to be able to put pieces together. It's not, you know, go call this person on and I hope it goes well. It's holding their hand and helping them and trying to say, okay, yes, there's this, and I'm going to talk to Sally. Sally's going to be able to get you this, and we're going to do that. But let's say, for instance, you don't have any nonprofits that's able to service, you know, that single mom in need, right? What do you do? We are the first state in the nation with pride to tap into our faith-based community. We have 16.5 million people of faith across the state of Florida, 20,000 institutions of faith who have always been there and ready and willing to help. The two never knew each other existed because somewhere along the way government got involved. So what do? We say, okay, we've enlisted thousands of churches. So now you got that single mom, you got the navigator who are having a hard time putting food on the table. I got you. They literally, the navigator will input into an electronic system, right, the need of the single mom. Let's say she can't put food on the table. They'll say, hey, churches, there's a single mom and she's having a hard time with groceries and food. Can you help? Question mark. Goes out in the form of immediate electronic alert to our participating faith-based organizations. They all compete. And it's a competition. Who can get it first? And they're legitimate needs, right? These are coming from reputable sources. They need help. They got it. They literally deliver that to her front doorstep. They show up with a plate of lasagna. They show up with groceries. And you know what else they show up with? Hope and love. Because what has just happened? Government has made a connection between good people in need of help, good people who are willing to help. The two just came together. And you know what? Government, in a lot of instances, can take a step back because a lot of their work is done. However, it doesn't end there, right? So just as I've said, you have these navigators who are mentors to the mothers or to anyone, right? So foster, adoptive families, our veterans, elders, whatever it might be, anybody who's looking for assistance, they're going to be able to help provide those services. But let's say that single mom is looking for help with her kids. We are doing so much, thanks to him, with the Fatherhood Initiative, thanks to those in the legislature who have been supportive, to be able to provide mentorship opportunities for children. So now think about this. The navigator, we're meeting immediate needs, you're helping to mentor the mom, but all of a sudden along the way, the navigator can say to that mom, hey, you know, take a child fishing. There are big brothers, big sisters. There's all of these mentorship programs to help the children live up to their God-given potential, because I can tell you the one thing that I have seen with such humility. I've been able to meet kids through this program with the Department of Juvenile Justice, where kids who have been abused and neglected, and they've just gone through hell, frankly. But I get to meet them because they become ambassadors. And why are they ambassadors? Because they've overcome just unsurmountable odds. And their success stories are unbelievable, like class presidents, first one to graduate from college, entrepreneurship, all of this. And I ask every single one of them the exact same question. I said, how did you get to the governor's mansion? Like, you've overcome a lot. I've seen your stories. How did you do that? And they all give me the same answer. They don't realize they're doing it, but they do. They all tell me the exact same thing. They said, someone at some point took an interest in my life and gave me value, and gave me worth, and gave me hope. And that changed everything. So think about this philosophy, right, of Hope Florida, right? So now you're helping the mom, you're helping the families, you're helping the children to get the mentorship so they can have hope, that they can overcome. But it doesn't even end there, right? Because of everything that this governor has done, vocational and technical and higher education, and all of these opportunities to be able to get skills, to be able to get a job, to live up to your God-given potential, and ultimately to be happy and successful. It's there, but think about it. You can have the best resources in the world. If you don't know that they're there, what good are they? It's so hard to find. Even Grok would have some problems trying to figure out all of the different wickets, right? So if you're a mom and you don't even know where to start and you're trying to hold down the fort, just imagine if you knew there's a job waiting for you over there. Here are the skills that you can get a lot of times paid for. You can get paid apprenticeships. You can get all the skills. You can get your high school diploma, whatever it is. We're going to map it out for you, right? You're going to have it, and then this job is waiting for you on the other side where you can make more money. You can be self-sufficient. You can live up to your God-given potential in the American dream, and ultimately, for me, what it is, because it means the most, is happiness. If you, and I go back to what I said in the beginning, this is why I do this. People are like, you're nuts to get out there and get involved in politics. I said, this is why I do it, because you see it's all there. You can help change the trajectory of somebody's life. You can put them on a pathway to economic self-sufficiency. You can help them be happy. And so if you see that, you have an obligation to get into the arena and to fight on behalf of them. And anything less, I think, would be malpractice. And like I said, it's an honor and a privilege. And he mentioned a second ago about the 30,000 number, which I think is just, it's fantastic, right? It's showing people the pathway and hope. But there's also something really interesting about that. And this, we're working to quantify it. But what about the preventative side of things? Why is it that government a lot of times in all its glory waits until there's a problem, then they react, and the outcomes aren't as good, they spend more money, there's more bureaucracy, there's more bloat, there's more waste, there's no accountability, all of this stuff. What if we get in front of problems? What if there's a way to prevent that child from being taken from the household? What if there's a way that we can help that single mom before she even goes into government assistance? We're doing that. So, for instance, the other day we partnered with every single sheriff's office across the state of Florida. Why? Well, because their deputies are the first ones on the ground when there's a problem, and they're going into the communities, and they know the people in the communities. And prior to all of this, if they saw that there was a problem, they might know of maybe one nonprofit or something. But now they see a problem, they say, you know what, do you need help? And then they can go ahead and they can tell them about the Hope Florida model. Call one number, right? 833-GET-HOPE. Talk to a human. That's the other thing about society. We've all gotten down to this, right? It's like, can we just talk to somebody? And that's what you can do. You can talk to a human. You can go to the website and you can get help. That's how you get in front of it. Helping in the colleges, that's how you get in front of it. Working with the schools, that's how you get in front of it. You try to help prevent people from ever going into government to begin with. And think about, this is not a program per se. This is about a philosophy. This is about how do we re-engineer and restructure government to benefit the taxpayer and to benefit the people who deserve help. Because if there's a mom out there right now and she doesn't know where to turn, but dang it, does she need help? Man, does she not want the pathway? And we know we have it. We have an obligation to tell her about it so that she can be happy. And it all makes sense. It's crystal clear to be said. I mean, I'd be happy to do whatever's necessary to talk to anybody about this. And that's why you see people coming from all over the United States of America to come to Florida to say Florida is leading. And we don't have copyright on this. You want to do it, go forth and take the model and run with it because it's a success. And from my perspective, it's really an honor and it's a privilege to be in this position to be able to help people in need. It's one that I approach with much humility, and it's one that I'm going to keep fighting for every day of the week and twice on Sunday.